I just want to invest in people that really want to be the best that they can be. Hello, everyone. This is Todd Scrima. Thank you. We are doing a Be Your Best podcast here. This one I'm going to do by myself. There's a lot of information to cover. I'm going to delve into financial management of a company. So this is obviously the business section meant for business owners and managers. I'm going to cover a lot of stuff, and I'm going to warn you ahead of time. I'm going to be a little raw, or at least it'll appear that way. And I will tell some stories as well, but I want to share with you how important it is and some tactics and how to think about financial management of a company. And it's a huge subject, huge subject. I've got all kinds of war stories, and I'll start with a couple. So the first one is I always loved business, and I just wanted to go into business. When I was a kid, the original movie Wall Street, was it Michael Douglas or Kirk Douglas was in it, came out, and I thought, that's what I want to do. You know, I'm going to be buying and selling companies and doing all this stuff. I don't watch movies more than once. I probably watched that one 6 times as a kid. And I kind of grew up and I started working for my father. He, kind of a crazy story. There was this products company that was next door to another company he had. We got to know the owner and we were friends. One day he drops dead of a heart attack and the company needed to sell the business. So my father thought it would complement his other business, so he bought it. So I'm about 17 and the company's doing about $50,000 a month in gross revenue. And, you know, I was a good salesperson. I started managing some people. You know, you're talking about, I built it up to maybe 15 employees or so, something like that. And over the course of several years, while I was going to college, I was still running that company. And we got up to doing 500,000 a month in sales. The problem was, I went to my dad one day and said, I just got the profit and loss from the best month we ever had. We sold more products than we ever did. And I said, Dad, this is a dog. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, we're at 4% net profit. And we've got, you know, at the time, maybe $800,000 in inventory. And you could just do better using that money somewhere else. I said, it's a fairly complicated business. It's a lot of financial risk. And plus I got to finish college, so I got to go away. So I ended up selling that company. And that's one story I've got is don't invest or don't run or don't get involved with a low margin business. It does work sometimes. You know, you hear stories about Costco and Walmart. It's not many that play the low price game or the low margin game and win. I saw this years ago, and I wish I could tell you, it was like on 60 Minutes or something. It was years ago. This company did a study, and they were like, hey, how do I find out, you know, what ingredients does a company that lasts 20, 30, 40, 50 years and makes a good net profit, what characteristics do they have? So someone funded this, but they studied thousands of companies. They went through financials and they had certain criteria, but the criteria was basically they were in business, I think it was 25 years or more. They were still in business, of course, and they had a above average profit margin. And so they just did all kinds of things. And the study was like 3 years long. So they interviewed the guy who did the study, and he got on camera, and the interviewer was like, well, we're dying to know what you find out. You're the unveiling on this show of what you found out. And he says, you know what? We looked at this. This is how many thousands of companies we looked at, and we poured through financials, and we put the study cost $4 million. And he just went on. And he said, we only found one thing. And I'm on my edge of my seat, like, what do you mean you found one thing? What was it? And he says, they were an above average profitable business. They were in a large margin business, meaning one of the examples, they used several, but was Gillette razors. He says, look at the cost for Gillette to produce that razor that you pay $12 for in the store is literally 44 cents. And so he used examples like that. So that's just a story I thought I'd tell you. And the last one is, people will look at someone like myself. I run one of the largest mortgage banking companies in the country. Last year we did 400 million in revenue, company revenue, 8 billion in loans. I've owned coaching companies that produce 30 million a year in net profit, in gross profit, and that's 50% profit margin. I have a company right now. I started 2 years ago. I put $5 million into it. It makes $2 million a year. So I am really, really good at being a businessman. Not good at a lot of other things, but it's been my life, really. I've poured my life into learning accounting and financial management and sales and all these things that you got to work on. And I'm happy to share it because I think I was just having this conversation with someone. When you're good at something, and the whole reason I started this podcast is this information just doesn't get out there. And if you do want it, you got to pay someone, $20,000 a month to coach you or something. And it's sad because really the small business and medium-sized businesses in America, they are what make up America. Everyone likes to talk about the Googles and the Amazons, but that's such a minority of the 6 million, 8 million businesses in America. They're a very, very small percentage and sliver and company count. But yet people always use this as examples. And what I like to think about is, hey, what about the dry cleaner guy that found out how to provide really good service and really find a niche and really have great customer service, and he's got 5 of them? And he's making $150,000 a month running his dry cleaners, or what about the accounting firm that has 3 partners and they've got 50 employees and the company puts 25% to the bottom line and they've got a great company culture. It's like, those are the kind of people that I want to help because it's fun. And some great medium-sized companies that, maybe they're doing 100 million in revenue, or they have 500 employees, and they're trying to go to that next level. And that's a lot of what this is about. So I'm going to give you a lot of ideas. This is one where what I think you'll get out of it, and what I hope that you get out of it, is 2 or 3 things that you're like, that's it, I'm doing that. Don't try and do everything I talk about. But it may be one that you want to watch 2 or 3 times to really get those 2 or 3 things out of it. I'll tell you one more story. I'm about 3 years into owning my first company, and I was making really good money. I was young, 26 maybe, and I got to the office. It was probably 7 a.m., 7:30, and I looked at the door. And I just didn't want to go in there. And I was like, what's wrong? What is that about? And interesting, I was really good at sales. So everyone's got things that they're just kind of good at already. And then there's 2 or 3 or 4 things that you're just horrible at. And I was horrible at delegation. I was horrible at time management. I thought I would just work my way out of any problem. Which that's only going to get you to an early grave. I didn't know financial management. 90% of the things I'm going to cover today, I wasn't good at. And so we're going to cover all these things. But the reason I share that with you is because wherever you're at is not where you're going. And if we just get a little bit better every week, every month, every quarter, every year, you're going to look back in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years and say, wow, I really built a great company. And that's what we're all after. We all want the same things. The problem is we don't have the skills or the knowledge to get there. And so that's what this is about. Let me start. I'm going to share my screen. So if you're driving or you're watching on this, you can always get these visual aids on a website called beyourbestseries.com, beyourbestseries.com. So you're looking at my screen here for those of you that have it. If not, you can go to Be Your Best Series and get this visual when you're done. On the left-hand side, it says tips and tricks. And this is just kind of me throwing up on a piece of paper on some tips that I want to give you about profit and loss management. As a business owner, you must be a master salesperson. So if you listen to these, you know, I talk about this a lot. You are the influencer. You are the salesperson. And too often I run into business owners and they say, well, I just, you know, I'm not a salesperson. I really, you know, this is not my skill set. Well, if it's not, then don't own a company, because that's who you are. You are a salesperson, period. And if you're not willing to be one, it's not going to go so well about 90% of the time. Every once in a while, you've got some patent or something, and maybe you've got a partner who's really good at sales. Those things do happen, but 90% of the time, you've got to be the influencer. Secondly, is cut expenses every single month, no matter what. Every single Monday in my company, we have a cost cut meeting. It's myself and 2 other people. And the rule is they have to bring me a cost cut. That's the rule. And it can be $100. I'll tell you what, this happened a few years ago. Controller or financial analyst comes in and says, Todd, we're pretty much paperless, right? And I said, yeah, everything's done paperless, almost everything. And she said, well, I counted 14 shredder bins in the building, and I think we can get away with 5. And I said, well, what's the cost cut? She says, well, by getting rid of the other ones, it saves us $2,800 a month. So do the math, right? $2,800 a month times 12. We had been paperless for several years. I just wasted 100 grand, wasted on nothing, just stupid, just an oversight. You know, because we're not having a cost cut meeting. So a cost cut meeting is simple. It's 30 minutes. It's every single week, and it's with 2 or 3 people. And you must have a cost cut. You must walk out of that meeting with something done. That's the rule. Sometimes they're big, huge things. Sometimes they're little tiny things. Okay. Number 1 rule in business: make a profit. Warren Buffett is known as one of our modern day great business people. And I certainly agree. This is one of his rules. It's pretty basic. You always have to make a profit. I guess I'm trying to use some metaphors. Maybe not making a profit in a business not only puts the business at risk and puts people's livelihood at risk, but it also, maybe it's like being in a marriage, but there's no love. Like you're just roommates. Like, what's the purpose of the marriage? You know, we're supposed to improve each other's lives and love on one another. So a lot of ways to say it. Bottom line is make a profit. Next, always track your money and percentages on your P&L. So when you do any of these financial instruments, I'm talking about financial statements, always do it in dollars. So, okay, the company grossed this much money. And then you say you have sales expense, you know, what you pay your salespeople. You have the dollar of what you paid your salespeople in that line item, but it's always a percentage of revenue as well. So the dollars don't always tell the truth and the percentages don't always tell the truth, but one of them or both of them does. So when you talk about financial analysis, you want to look at dollars and you want to look at percentages always. Key items that affect your profit: product mix, what you pay your employees is very important. Margin is very important, and productivity of people. So every business is different. If you're in a service business, up to 85% of your costs can be employees and employee benefits and, you know, things that surround employees, matching payroll taxes. So when you're looking at all this, you got to know where your big expenses are, and you got to know how to control those expenses. Very, very, very critically important. I say product mix. We're going to talk about this in a bit, but you know, the idea here is know what makes you money. Too often times I look at a company and I'm like, yeah, you know, 60% of your sales are this product, but there's no profit there. They say, well, we sell that product so that we can get the other profitable ones. Well, maybe we just sell the other profitable ones. Top 3 jobs of a business owner: profit, make a profit, process, and sales. If I had to pick 3, those are my 3. If I had to add a 4th, I would say king of culture, making sure that your people feel engaged and that people know the purpose of the company. That's very important as well, that alignment factor. But those are the things that that a business owner has to pay attention to at all times. Next, it says, if you're the boss, you will hire, fire, and lay off people forever. Oh, this is such an emotional one for me and other people. Um, the business takes a downturn, you're in a business cycle, and you got to lay off Sally. And Sally's a single mom, and she's got 2 kids, and it is emotional. Let me give you a couple ways to think about it. First of all, there's a certain acceptance here. This is kind of like writing down, I will die someday. People know that, but do you really think that way? Like, do you really feel that way? As a boss, you're going to hire, fire, and lay off people for the rest of your life. It's just the way it is. Once you accept that, it changes. We can make better decisions. I'll make some comments around this. Hiring, I'm going to do one of these just on hiring. It's probably top 3 weakest skill of business owners is hiring. I have spent thousands of hours learning it and doing it, and still make mistakes. It's never perfect, but been fortunate enough to have a process where I tend to hire really, really good employees. Firing, I tell people you want to follow a process. There are HR laws and stuff around this, but you want to follow a process and you want to be consistent about it. If you write someone up and your handbook says you got to write someone up, and then if they get written up twice, after the 3rd time they're termed, follow your process. I think it is vitally important that you sit down with an employee and don't just go firing people. Say, hey, here's the behavior that I need you to change. Here's exactly what I need you to change and by when, right? So how you discipline people becomes very important in any company, small company, big company. I have a friend of mine, this quick story that I just thought of. A friend of mine works for an accounting company, and she tells me the other day that 3 of the managers just got let go that morning. No explanation. There was some flimsy email that the management sent out. No explanation, nothing. And so I don't know what happened. What they say is they're in a business cycle and had to get rid of some costs. However, the way they did it seemed very inhumane to the employees, and it's causing problems. And because of that, it's a week later and people are interviewing elsewhere because they don't feel safe. So, if you fire someone, you got to be careful of HR laws, but you have to set people down and have a little meeting about it, get some tears out, be as honest as you can without revealing, deep, dark secrets. But I think when people fire people, a lot of times it's not done well. And then laying off people. I'll give you a spin on this. I'll do it through a story. Years ago, I laid off a receptionist. And she was a sweet gal, but you could tell it wasn't her cup of tea. And so I get a letter from her about 2 months later, and it says, "Dear Todd, thank you for letting me go. I found that I have a passion for working with children, and I am now managing a small school. I forgot, it was like not bigger than a daycare, but not a full-blown school." She says, I love it. I love waking up every single day. I'm passionate about it. And by the way, I'm making another $1,500 a month. So here's the moral to the story. When companies do this, and you make the decision to lay someone off, let's just call it what it is. You're not laying off the best performers. You're laying off people that are not performing well, chances are, almost always. And the reason they're not performing well is usually because they don't love their job. So is it really that inhumane? Maybe you're doing them a favor, as my story illustrated. I've had that story happen over and over again, by the way. If someone's not performing, they're adults. They know they're not doing a great job. They know they're at the bottom of the poll, or they're the bottom of the metrics. They're not stupid. I think a lot of employers think, yeah, they just don't know what's going on. They know what's going on. They just don't love what they're doing. And so given that they're scared to change, which everyone is, but giving them a little push sometimes is a great thing. And it almost always works out for the better. So I know some of you are thinking, Todd, you're soft selling yourself for laying people off. I'm really not. I have helped a lot of companies do layoffs. I have not had to do that many over the last 25 years, but I've done a handful. It's never pleasant, but almost always they find better employment on something that they enjoy doing more. Okay. Um, mm, 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 mm. Oh, this next one I love. Make more in your business than you can a job. So the purpose of a business is to make profit. The purpose of a business is not for you to say that you're self-employed and work 90 hours a week and make, less than you would make at another job. So give an example. If I am a chef and I love to cook and I'm getting paid $6,000 a month to be a chef for a nice restaurant, and I decide my dream is to open my own restaurant. Nothing wrong with that. But I shouldn't open my own restaurant, work more hours, have more stress and responsibility, and make $5,000 a month. If I'm going to risk capital, sign a lease, learn new skills like how to hire people and manage other people and hire servers and all that, I should be, instead of $5,000 a month I was making as a chef, I should be aiming at, hey, how do I make $15,000 a month? If you're not looking at it that way, that's not a business, that's a job. And the problem is that job sucks. We're working 90 hours a week or 60 hours a week. You're exhausted. You've got more stress. You're making less money. That's a dumb decision. Okay. So in your business, make more in your business than you do your job. And it's not by a little bit, it's by a lot. Make sure your financial statements are accurate. Pretty basic statement, big problem in a lot of companies. I've looked at a lot of financial, I had a business go out of business last year and they asked me for some help. So I'm looking at their financial statements and I asked for their cash flow statement and he said, yeah, we can't produce those cash flow statements. I said, Bud, I need the cash flow statements. A few weeks goes by, coach him again, said, Bud, I need the cash flow statement. He says, well, I'm going on vacation and so is the CFO. I said, Bud, you have your cash flow statements to me on Friday and we have an emergency meeting because I think you're going out of business. And if you won't accept those terms, we're done. I will never talk to you again. Long story short, I get the cash flow statements. I get the financial statements. The company has about 30 days left before they can't make payroll. I looked at their documents, found that out in about 10 minutes, got the CFO and the president on the phone and told them this. And they're like, well, we kind of knew. I said, well, it's just math, right? It's just math. You only have so much cash left. You have this much coming in. You have this much going out. It's math, right? So in their case, their financials, when they eventually got them done, I think were accurate. I don't know for sure, but it told the story. It told the story that, hey, this is just not that you're not staying in business. Well, I start looking at their margins. I'm like, look at your margins are literally half of your competitors. Why is that? Their answer was, we didn't know that. I said, well, number one, if you don't fix it quickly, you're going to go out of business. And number two, it's weird to me that you didn't even know what other people are charging for goods and services in your business. Okay. So next, we're going to separate this into some sales. We're going to talk about some P&L management. We're going to talk about some cost cutting. This is one of those subjects where, like, we could spend, this could be a 3-week class, right? But I want to pick things that are going to help people that are either thinking of starting their own business or they have a business, whether it's small or large, and give them some tips on ways that I think you can look at things differently and make more money, keep yourself in business, and frankly, have fun. Number one, on sales. Sales is the number one killer for any business. If you think about it, guys, your supply and demand for your goods and services, if they're low, the first thing that everyone thinks of is how do we drop our price to increase demand? Economics 101. Well, if you have more sales than you can handle, then your margin goes up in any business. And so one of the reasons that sales is so vital and should be one of the number one things that you work on is if you don't have enough sales, the business is going out of business. The more sales you have, the more gross revenue you're going to make, and the more net revenue you're going to make, the more profit. Okay. So kind of basic, but most business owners, this is they don't think about it. You ever go into a restaurant, and I just use this metaphor because it's something we can all relate to. You go into a restaurant and there's only 30% of the people eating in there that they could be serving. No, business is not making any money. Restaurant's going to make a lot of money. The more packed it is, the energy's higher. I want to come back. I see several friends I saw there. The food was great. It creates this energy where it tends to keep going downhill like a snowball. Okay. Find ways to sell what makes the most gross margin. Again, very easy to overlook in any business. Most businesses have them, but let me give an example. Let's say that a tax attorney does books for some companies, and then they do, say, prepare tax returns for individuals and corporations. And let's say that if you look at those as three different segments of the business, the doing the books for companies makes money. You charge a certain fee based on how many employees they got, or maybe their gross revenue. Your individual tax returns, you run that on a separate P&L, and that actually breaks even or loses money. On the business tax returns, you're swamped. You can't handle the demand, and it's the most profitable business you got. Well, when you look at that, maybe you keep doing the books. Maybe you take your resources from doing personal tax returns. You let H&R Block do that, and then you put all those people into your business unit so that you can, instead of doing 500 business tax returns a year, you can get it up to 1,000, right? Those are the kind of decisions that we're talking about when we talk about this. Third, focus on large accounts that can cut down sales time and maximize revenue. This is almost true for any business. You don't want to be in a business where one client makes up 80% of your sales or 60% of your sales. You want to diversify so that if any one account leaves, you're good. However, you do want to work on bigger accounts, because depending on the type of business you're in, you may find that one account that you've had for 10 years, when you apply the P&L to what it costs to do business with them, that you're actually losing money. And so we want to invest in our high profit products. We want to invest in our high margin business units. We want to minimize or get rid of everything else. And that's the idea here. It's counterintuitive because the salespeople that, a lot of business owners that own businesses are really good salespeople. They don't want to let any business go. I can't let any business go. Give you an example. I have a friend of mine owned a business, and it was during COVID. And I see him one day and he just looks sick. He just looks sick in the head, sick in the mouth, just like, white. And he's always so happy. And I said, "Hey, bud, what's going on?" He says, "Business is not good." I said, "Okay, listen, I'm not doing anything tonight. Why don't you come over for a beer? Let's bring your books. Let's talk about it." So we sat down and I just asked him questions for about an hour. I asked him to bring his account list. And so this particular business had 6,000 accounts. Okay. And we looked at it and we took, there was about 4,000 accounts that literally did one transaction or 3 transactions a year. We got rid of them all. Then we looked at the top 200 accounts, of which I was one of them. And I said, well, If we got rid of all the other accounts and we just focused on these 200, how much revenue would that be to the company? We did the math. Todd, that's like 65% of our revenue. Said, okay, if we didn't have to serve the other 4,000 clients, how much could we reduce costs? So we did the math, and we could get rid of about 80% of our costs. 80%. What we discovered is we totally changed the business model. And now he's got about 500-600 accounts, but they're all profitable. He got rid of a ton of overhead, and he's making the same money pre-COVID as he's making within 20% of the same income as he used to. However, he's got less employees to manage, less overhead. And when COVID changes, his business will pick up and he'll be making about 20-30% more than he used to. So that's what we mean by that, okay? Next is stay in touch with your top 10 most profitable accounts. Out of sight, out of mind. There are people like in my company, I have what I call a VIP list. There's 90 people on my VIP list. So I run a larger company. I've got 90 people that I talk to all the time, right? At least twice a month in person or on video. I see them a lot during normal, non-COVID times. That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Those are your core people. Those are your soldiers. And that's kind of the same mentality I'm using with this. Your number may not be 10. For the gentleman I was just talking about, it's 200. But those are people like these 90 people for me, or these 200 for them, or maybe 10 for you. These are people you would have to your house for a barbecue. These are people that you invite to your birthday party. These are relationships. They're not just numbers. And so often people lose accounts and like, I don't know what happened. He went to a competitor. I don't even think that competitor is as good as me. May not be, but maybe he played golf with them. Maybe so my point is relationship and focus play a major part in what we're talking about. You got to stay focused on those people. Okay. Next, let's talk about P&Ls. Focus on your high profit business. Hopefully I sound like a broken record. I gave you the accountant example. Focus on your high profit business. What brings in the dough? What is the highest margin? What's the highest net revenue? Those are things that we want to focus on always. I have a gentleman years ago, 8 years ago, maybe, started a cupcake company. You know, those cupcake companies, and you walk in there and they sell cupcakes for like $3 a piece. So I'm at a party and he says, "Hey, Todd, can I talk to you?" I'm all, yeah. He says, well, I want to talk to you about my business. I started it 3 years ago, the cupcake company. I said, yeah. He says, I quit my 10 grand a year, 10 grand a month job to do this. And I've hardly made any money at all. And I said, okay, well, how many cupcakes are you selling? He tells me. I said, what is your cost per cupcake? What's your gross margin? What's your net margin? Long story short, he could make in a kind of a semi-perfect world about $1 a cupcake. And I said, bud, shut down the business. And he looks at me like I'm crazy. And I said, I'm not trying to be mean, but you have to sell 10,000 cupcakes just to replace your old income. And he looks at me and he's all, oh my God, I've never thought of it that way. I said, well, you've been doing it 3 years and you're selling 5,000 a month. So if you're lucky, you're making 2 or 3 grand, 5 grand, best case scenario, if everything's working great. And you have to more than double just to get back to making what you can make on a job. So there are good and bad businesses. That's my point. You can make some money doing anything, but that doesn't mean you should do it. Okay. Grow your top line revenue while decreasing costs. I have this discussion. If your business, if you wanted to make $100,000 a year, the business needs to do well over that in sales. If you're at roughly a 30% profit margin and you don't have many, a ton of expenses, but you got some, obviously all businesses do. you're going to have to do 300,000 revenue to net 100,000, right? So top line revenue does matter. When you look at a business and you want to know how much money they make, it's not very hard. You got to look at their top line revenue. And then, I always do this when I coach a company. I'm like, hey, what's their top line revenue? I get a feel for how many employees they got, and I do a guess in my head on what their bottom line revenue is. A lot of companies, they generate cash flow, but they don't, the cash doesn't fall to the bottom line. And so top line revenue counts and expenses matter a lot, okay? So grow your top line revenue and decrease costs. So you grow your top line revenue by selling a lot, having big accounts, knowing what accounts make you money. You decrease costs by doing a 30-minute meeting every single Monday on cost cutting. And you're looking for, hey, $100 here, $10 here, $3,000 here, cut on things that aren't going to affect the business, okay? By the way, when it comes to cost cutting, sometimes people get into this. They're like, well, gosh, we feed the employees every Friday afternoon, and that's like $600 a month, and I'm just going to cut that out. Probably not, right? So if you have a chance to where you're feeding your 8 employees and it costs you $600 a month, but people feel like a family and they feel like a community. So be careful of the cause and effect of what cost cuts you're having. I rarely ever look to cut, like it would be a last ditch effort for me to cut something like a 401k match or lunches, or snacks around the office that we have, because they're not big enough. There's other things I can cut that don't affect the business and they don't affect the employees. And so very, very important. I just want to make sure I deciphered that. You need to show a net profit every month or cuts are made. Simple. You need to show a net profit every month. Businesses get in trouble because and you see this with big and small companies. They're losing money, no cuts. They're losing money, no cuts. They're losing money, no cuts. Pretty soon, when I say they're losing money, their profit's going down. All of a sudden, they get to a point to where they're zero, or they lost, $5,000, $10,000, $500,000, whatever it is. Then they take massive action. Don't do that. Progressive discipline works with kids. Progressive discipline works with kids, or excuse me, with employees. Progressive discipline in finances works. So, hey, we miss our profit margin in a month. Okay, let's understand what happened. If it's an aberration, let's not belabor it. We're second month business, net profit goes in half. Okay, timeout, special meetings, all hands on deck. We're going to figure this out. We're going to understand. We're going to make some decisions. We're going to act in the next couple of days. Okay, so your actions get progressively faster and harder as things get worse, but that you don't wait until you've lost a bunch of money or you've lost your equity in order to take action. Okay, you're going to take action anyway. So whether you take action today or whether you take it 3 months from now, you're still taking action. The difference is you might save $200,000, right? So this is one of those things that's important. Another major issue is understand the 3 major financial statements. So we're talking about profit and loss, very important. It shows whether your business is making money or losing money. Your balance sheet shows assets and liabilities and capital in the business and the changes to them month to month, year to year. Your cash flow statement shows how changes in your balance sheet and your income affect your cash. A lot of companies have this where they say, Todd, look at my P&L. I'm making money. I coached a company once that had this. They're like, Todd, we're making all this money. We're on pace to make 13 million this year. And I'm like, hey, let me look at your cash flow. So I look at their cash flow statement. I'm like, okay, I see that your P&L is on pace to make 13 million, but your cash flow is not going up 13 million. It's nowhere close. So either your P&L is wrong or someone's stealing from the company, because these numbers, it shouldn't work this way. It should be, if you're going to make $1 million in a month, I should see a lag, but at some point I should see that $1 million turning into cash, and it's not. Okay. That can be a lot of things. It doesn't mean someone's stealing from the company, but whatever it is, it's not good, right? So your cash flow statement is probably the most underutilized tool in a business. Most business owners don't even look at it or don't even create one. That's a big mistake. So when you're trying to reconcile, hey, I'm making this much money, and so the cash needs to be coming into the company. If it's not coming in, it could be. This is common for businesses. They are they're selling the products, but they're selling them on credit, and they've got some bad accounts that aren't paying them. Well, you'll see that in a cash flow statement. Okay, you'll see it in other areas as well, but you'll see it on a cash flow statement. You won't see it on a P&L. Okay, so 3 ways to fix a losing P&L. These are just 3 things that are most common. Obviously, cut expenses, lay off people, increase revenue through more sales. Not rocket science, right? One of the things I love about business, guys, just a quick sidebar, is it makes sense. Business always makes sense. If your financial statements are correct, it will tell you what's wrong. Okay. And so it's not that there can't be other things wrong, like, hey, we're losing sales because our salespeople are bad, or we have 2 bad salespeople out of 4, and they're just dropping accounts like flies. Okay. But it will lead you to the right answers. So business always makes sense. Now, personal life stuff, how to raise kids and how to fall in love, and all, that's much harder stuff for me. But business makes sense. It's a logical unit. Okay. So now, switch gears as we get towards the end of this. I want you to write this down. So this is homework. This is called kinesthetic learning. If your business made a 20% profit margin, how much would you make per month or per year? So if you had 100,000 in sales last year, you would have made 20,000. If you had $1 million in sales, you would have put 200,000 to the bottom line. Okay. Your business may make that, may not make that. It may make more than that, but I'm curious, what does that look like to you? Okay. In my coaching company that I was a part of for 20 years, some people that I coached were 1099, and I'd ask them, hey, what was your income last year? And they would always tell me their top line revenue. Well, the truth is, it was always about half that. So they'd say, Todd, I made 300,000 a year. I made 300,000 last year. And I'd be like, really? Let's look at your tax return. I look at it and I say, no, after all your expenses, you made 150,000. Then they would argue with me and say, no, Todd, I that. The company, the famous one was, well, the company pays a bunch of personal expenses for me. Yeah, well, okay. If it's a lot of money, you're breaking the IRS tax code, and you can go to jail. B, the way you can have the company pay for some things, but either it's a legitimate business expense or it's not. And so another famous thing is, well, Todd, no, my expenses are fake. I said, well, okay, so are you not paying that employee? No, I am. Did you not have that cell phone expense? No, I did. I said, okay, so your expenses are there because you paid them. It's kind of like some people say, well, I'm going to sell a bunch of investments and lose money so I can save money on taxes. I said, no, dummy. If you bought a stock for $30 and sold it at a loss for $15, yeah, you had a loss of $15. That's the truth. Did you save part of, 30% of that in taxes? Yes, but you still had a net loss of $10 per share. So you never invest in something to lose money. You always invest in something to grow it and have it make a profit. What's the number one frustration with your P&L right now? Just think about that. What is that frustration? Hey, my expenses are too high. I don't understand my financial statements. I don't believe my accountant. Whatever, I don't know what it is, but I want you to think about it. Write it down if you're someplace where you can write, okay? What are 3 ways that you could cut costs? Think about it. What's 3 ways that you could cut costs? Write them down. Is it the paper shredder bins like my story told you? Is it renegotiate? Negotiation is important. In my company, we negotiate. They probably hate us. We negotiate vendors like crazy. I know year before last, just in one area of negotiation, we saved $220,000. So you can negotiate, right? It's to be expected in business. I think everyone needs to make a profit, but if you're not the good negotiator, put someone else in charge that is. So that's important. Now, let me end with some visioning. So 5 years from now, think about it. 5 years from now, where could your business be? Where could your business be? And I want you to write down a few thoughts. By the way, I teach a whole class on 5-year visioning, and it's pretty amazing when you just think about something, and especially if you write it down, almost like dream goals, they will tend to happen. They will tend to happen. So I just want you guys to think about that. I got a question that just popped in. What's the best strategy to create a realistic and achievable 5-year vision? 2 ways to do it. Number 1 is to make a dream board. So that's where, hey, if you want to buy a Porsche, cut out a picture of a Porsche, from Pinterest or something, and put it on a piece of paper. If you want a big custom house, you want to build a big custom house, find one you like, put it on a board. It's like a big chart, maybe 3 feet by 3 foot. And you develop this dream board. And it's very fun to do as a family activity, very fun to do as a work activity. So that's one way to do it. I'm a little more pointed. So I fill out this 5-year vision statement. It says, hey, what do I want my love life to look like in 5 years? Okay, well, I don't know myself because I don't have a love life, but but I've made up something on what great looks like. Okay, what miraculous looks like. What is my relationship with my children? So take each area of your life. What do I look like physically? What is my weight? How many times am I working out? What can I do physically? Can I go on a 5-mile run? Can I do a 10-mile hike? Okay, write those things down. When it comes to your business and let's say your income, hey, Todd, this is hard for me. I just had my first year where I made $75,000. Great. What would be a dream in 5 years? And what I find is that people don't stretch enough. Remember, this is not a goal. We're writing it down as a dream goal. No inhibitions. Okay. And that person that made 75,000 say, you know what, Todd? Okay, you're really pressing me. I never thought I would do this, but I want to make 400,000. I've done this with thousands of people. 4 years later, 3 years later, they come back to me and say, Todd, you remember we're in that class? You had me write that down? I'm all, yeah. They said, I made 400,000 last year. So dare to dream, dare to write it down. You may never look at this again. It just gets in your head. And I don't know how to explain it. It somehow it makes it possible subconsciously. I don't know how to articulate it. I don't even really understand it. I know the book and the movie The Secret was all about this. I've never watched it, so I couldn't really tell you, but that's the subject of it. And that's, hey, what would that dream life look like? What hobbies would we be doing? Okay. And well, Todd, I've always wanted to learn guitar, but I never took the steps. Great. Put down there, I'm a fabulous guitar player. Todd, I always wanted to travel 3 weeks in Europe, but I just don't ever think I'll do it. I said, stop, just write it down. I just got back from the most fabulous 3-week trip in Europe. I visited Italy and Paris and right, just write about it, write it down as if it's happened. And that's what we're doing with your P&L here. So you said, my business will gross this much per month. Dream it. Dream it. whatever, write it down. Okay. I'll have this many employees. Well, Todd, I've only got one employee now. I said, I know, but you just wrote down you want gross revenue of 3 million. You're not gonna do that with 2 people. How many people would it take? Well, let's see the math. It would take me probably 14 people. Write it down. I will have 14 employees in 5 years. Right? Leveraged income. A lot of people, this is just something I want to mention because it's important. For me, let me just use myself. When I was a loan officer doing loans, I got to the point of doing 6, 7 loans a month, and then I couldn't do anymore. There was too many meetings, too many things. I was doing everything. So I couldn't do more than that. Then I hired an assistant. Actually hired 2. And I started doing 13, 14, 15 loans a month. Made sense. I'm paying them, I'm making another 20 grand a month. I'm paying them, they were part-time, both of them. So I'm paying them about 3 grand a month. So I'm netting another 17 grand a month. That's leveraged income. Someone has to do the work, and it can't be you. Someone has to do the work, and it can't be you. Okay. Whole nother class though. I will be closing this much. I don't know if it's deals, number of clients. Maybe you're a photographer, and so you're like, hey, I'm gonna do 10 shoots a week. Okay, whatever it is. And then I will make this much money in net profit. I'm gonna make this much money. How much is that? Write it down. You're like, Todd, okay, come on. I just had my first year. I made $70,000. You want me to write down some crazy number? You're really getting me out of my comfort zone. Yes, we want to think big. Okay, think big, do big. Grant Cardone, I don't know him. I've only watched 1 or 2 of his YouTubes, but he came out with that 10X book. Just a little that I know about him, what he's talking about is think bigger. Okay, think bigger. I love this story where Bill Gates says, hey, when we were a super small company, we had a vision, and the vision was a computer in every home. Now look at them. It has to start somewhere. We're the owners. We're the operators. We have to start somewhere, right? And so at some point, we just got to say, hey, yeah, I'll make $500,000 a year. I'll make $1 million. I've got so many people to make a 7-figure income, and I mean hundreds. That's not 1 or 2, it's hundreds. And none of them thought they could do it. None of them thought they could do it when they started. Yes, there was a time I didn't think I could do it. I don't know why. I just took my own medicine. I'm a big thinker. I'm a big dreamer, and it allowed me to think beyond my constraints. Okay. So someone did it for me, or somehow I did it. Hopefully I can be that person for you, where you can say, wow, I watched that stupid podcast guy, and he said I could make $1 million. And now look at me. Oh my God. Okay. So guys, last thing, and we'll close out. One of the best pieces of advice that I have found in business is treat it like a game. Just a game we're playing. It's like a basketball game, football game. I got my son is 15 years old. Huge kid, 6'5", 260 pounds. He wanted to play football so bad. And I'm sitting about 8 o'clock last night, and he'd been practicing football for 3 months, and they keep saying that they might have a season. And then I get the email last night, says he's got a 6-game season. And I run up to his room. I said, Bud, look at the schedule. They're actually going to have a football, because right up until yesterday, they're like, we're not sure, right? We're trying. Okay. At one point they said, probably not, but they're having it. And so he's so excited to play football, and he's going to play a game. It's a game. He's going to try and tackle some kids. Okay. He's going to try and tackle the quarterback. Okay. And get the runner. It's just a game. We're just playing a game. That's all it is. All it is. Now, in the beginning of my career, I didn't have that thought. I thought it was do or die. Listen, your business fails, the business fails. You're not a failure, the business failed. Now, could it have done better if you had better skills? Yeah, but you'll learn. Lots of people had failed businesses. I've had failed businesses. Okay. I still make a ton of mistakes. So it's not about perfection. It's about playing the game. And to expand on that, there's 12 quarters in our game because there's 12 months in a year. And every month you play the game. I'll give you an example for one of my businesses. One of my businesses just had the best January ever. Killed it. What I can tell you is come June or July, I could be falling off a cliff. Just play the game. I won one quarter. To me, if I can win 8 or so quarters a year, I'm doing great. And so you think about it that way. And we're just playing a game instead of 4 quarters. Ours has 12. And when you can take this information in and start to think that way, I think business becomes more fun. I think it becomes more purpose-filled. And I think we'll start to achieve some of these goals. And take this, some of this is strategic thought. Some of it is very detailed. If you take 1 or 2 things from this and put it into practice, Another comment, learning, I think that you learn something when you implement it. So until you're doing the Monday cost cut meeting every single week for 30 minutes for 3 months, you haven't learned it. You're just testing it, okay? So put whatever you do, put it in place. Keep it in place. Consistency wins over talent. You hear that all the time in sports. It's true in business, okay? Last thing, whether you're a business manager, you may be listening to this and you're like, hey, my owner needs to hear this, or my management staff needs to hear this, or my friend who's getting ready to open a business needs to hear this, or my friend that runs a restaurant needs to have this. Take this information, text it out to 3 people. Just send them the podcast. You can easily text this stuff around. I want to help people. And I can't help people if I don't have a bigger and bigger audience that grows. I'm not doing this for money. This is one of the few things in my life I don't do for money, okay? I just do it because I think it's the right thing to do to help people. Remember, you can get the handouts for any of these at beyourbestseries.com. Make sure you text this out to a few people. Last story. We have an annual retreat in one of my companies, and we had one, and we had a gentleman come on, and we always give money to a charity. So it's 30 minutes of a 2-day retreat. And this gentleman was talking about sex trafficking, and he's talking, and he showed that they were on 60 Minutes, and they showed this clip on how they saved 50 kids, literally kids, out there. And so the company was originally giving away 20,000. At the end, I bumped it to 50,000. And then as the speaker came on, I started seeing my employees, and they start, hey, I'm in for 1,000. Hey, I'm in for $500. Hey, I'm in for 5,000. We raise $100,000 in 30 minutes for one of the best reasons for charity or givings to charity that I can think of. So as you go through all this, and we talk about numbers, and we talk about P&L, let's not forget that our business needs to have a purpose. It's about people. It's about the people that we serve. And it's not just the borrowers, it's the employees. It's the people we're developing. And when that starts to click for a business owner, it's magic. It's magic. And that's the heart of the company. That's the heart of the business owner. So I've said a lot of things about details, lay off people, all that stuff. I wanted to bring it back to reality. And that is when all this stuff is done right, it serves a better purpose. And I'm not trying to compliment you or brag about giving away money to charity. My point in telling that story is that it can serve a bigger purpose. I talked to someone yesterday, started at my company 3 months ago. This month, he'll make $18,000, brand new into the business. I thought he was kind of fibbing to me. So I called the manager and said, hey, I just got a phone. Is that right? He says, yeah. That makes me feel good. Makes me feel good to help people and to invest in them. And that's what we're talking about, guys. When you do this right, it feels that way. Okay. So I hope you guys appreciated this. I certainly appreciate and am very honored that you would listen to me blab for an hour. Go out and make it a great day. Bye, guys. I just want to invest in people that really want to be the best that they can be.